I believe in Spinoza's God, who reveals himself in the orderly harmony of what exists, not in a God who concerns himself with the fates and actions of human beings. Albert Einstein. When Einstein was asked about his beliefs, he did not point to the heavens. Instead, he pointed to the orderly and mathematical harmony of the universe itself, a radical concept born from the mind of a forgotten 17th century philosopher, Baruch Spinoza. Decades later, the same idea returned to the spotlight when Elon Musk endorsed Einstein's epochal response to the perennial question about the existence of God. So what is this radical vision of God that reshaped how we understand nature and divinity? And who or what is Spinoza's God? Today we are diving into the scandalous life and philosophy of the man who rose from the ravages of religious carnage and dared to defy organized religions. At a time when conformity to authority was the law, Spinoza chose to champion independent thinking and reason over blind faith. In doing so, he didn't just challenge religion, he helped ignite the intellectual spark that would become the groundwork for the Enlightenment era, giving rise to ideas like democracy and social justice. Branded a dangerous heretic and lunatic in his lifetime, his ideas continue to endure and encourage critical thinking even centuries after his death. Stay with us until the end to discover the legacy of a man who fought for your right to think freely. But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to our channel to help us keep powerful ideas like this alive. 16 centuries after Jesus Christ had sought to unite the man with the divine, his message of brotherly love and compassion had faded into a distant echo. The Catholic Church, allied with the imperial powers like the Byzantine Empire, turned faith into an instrument of limitless authority. With the vengeance of the Christ as his war cry, the Church unleashed barbaric and savage tempest of violence that ultimately forced Jews into yet another exile. Among them were the ancestors of Baruch Spinoza. They were Spanish Jews who were expelled from the Iberian Peninsula, modern-day Spain and Portugal, after the relatively tolerant Moorish kingdom of Granada fell during the bloody reconquista of the neighboring Christian kingdoms. Amid this turmoil, the Netherlands offered a fragile hope. Reformist undercurrents, the rise of Marranos or the New Christians, and the Calvinist influence created space for tolerance and free thinking under the new Dutch Republic. Here, Spinoza's parents finally found shelter. In this fractured yet awakening world, Spinoza grew between memory of exile and the promise of freedom. His early interest in Hebrew and Arabian theology marked him as a promising scholar, and his father ensured he received the best education, hoping he would become a rabbi. But as he matured, his independent thinking led him to reject orthodox views and sympathize with the reformist Christians. Reformist ideas of thinkers like Goethe would fire his imagination and nudge him to pursue the path of logic and reason. He eventually joined the Van den Anden School, a center of free inquiry that was abhorred by both the synagogue and the Catholic Church. His association with it and his defiance of orthodoxy made him a scandal within the Jewish community. Free thought always demands sacrifices, and doubly so in the medieval Europe. At just 23, Spinoza was excommunicated, and people were forbidden even to associate with him. Banished from Amsterdam, he settled in the quiet village of Rijnsburg among the dissenting Christians. There he began shaping his life's work. Later in The Hague, he supported himself by grinding lenses by the day and writing by the night. There he completed his magnum opus, The Ethics. His idea of God was fully formed now, though recognition would come only after his death in 1677 at the age of 44. While alive, only condemnation and ridicule came his way. Baruch Spinoza did not deny God. Instead, he asserted that God exists and exists necessarily. But his vision of God was radical. At the heart of Baruch Spinoza's thought lies the idea expressed in his popular phrase Deus, sive, Natura, which means God or nature. For Spinoza, God is not a personal transcendent deity residing outside of the world. He is the totality of existence itself. Spinoza argued that there is only one reality, a perfect, self-caused, infinite substance known as God. Everything else, from galaxies and oceans to human beings and thoughts, exists in God and through God. From this infinite substance, the entire universe unfolds with absolute necessity. He declared that the cosmos, the laws of nature, and all forms of life are not the result of divine choice or intention, but expressions of rational and unchanging order inherent in God's nature. Since everything follows from the necessity, Spinoza rejected the idea that God has will, purpose, or intention in a human sense. Unlike the God of organized religions, this God does not plan, judge, reward, or punish. Spinoza also opposed the dualist ideas of French philosophers who viewed God as separate from the world. He maintained that God is the very fabric of existence and reality. Spinoza argued that God does not create the world in time. Instead, the world is a necessary expression of God's nature. Everything follows from God with the same certainty as the properties of a triangle follow from its essence. This infinite substance expresses itself through modes, which are nothing but the finite forms of existence within the matrix of time, space, and causation. From oceans and mountains to trees, animals, and human beings, nothing exists independently. All are dependent and temporary expressions of God. Spinoza illustrated this through the analogy of the ocean and its waves. The ocean represents substance while the waves represent modes. Each wave may appear distinct at the superficial level, but at the deeper level it has no existence apart from the ocean. It is in fact the expression of the ocean itself. Similarly, individuals are not separate from the God, but the expressions of the same divinity. The difference is not of kind, but of degree, as Swami Vivekananda summarized it centuries later. By rejecting an anthropomorphic and providential God, Spinoza undermined the foundations of all organized religions. The need for intermediaries like priests and prophets disappeared, and since everything unfolds through rational laws of causation, there are no miracles, no divine interventions, or no rigid commandments, Spinoza defiantly declared. According to Spinoza, true knowledge of God arises through reason and direct engagement with the reality comprehended through the attributes of God. Even though Spinoza's God has many attributes, he can be perceived by humans only through two such attributes known as thoughts and extensions. While thought refers to the realm of ideas, consciousness, and mental activity, extensions refer to physical and material aspects of reality. If God is not a creator who judges or commands, what guides human life? Baruch Spinoza did not see the rejection of God of organized religions as a path to nihilism, but as the beginning of genuine freedom. By dismantling the authority of dogmas and intermediaries, he opens the way for independent and critical thinking. Spinoza argued that human suffering arises from the false belief that we are separate from the divine. This illusion breeds fear, conflict, and even religious violence. True understanding begins when we recognize ourselves as the finite expressions of a single infinite reality. The aim of life, therefore, is not obedience or fear, but happiness and harmony grounded in truth. For Spinoza, morality is not imposed by divine commandments. Instead, it emerges from reason. The highest goal is what he calls the intellectual love of God, achieved by understanding the necessary order of the universe and our place within it. This shift transforms life from confusion to clarity. Central to this vision is the idea of conatus, the inner striving by which each being seeks to persist and flourish. In human life, it appears as the desire for self-preservation, growth, and greater power to act. When driven by external forces and uncontrolled emotions, it leads to passive states which he called passions. These passions are the very root of suffering. But when guided by reason, this striving becomes active and leads to self-mastery and insight. This idea closely echoes the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna guides Arjuna towards mastery over the senses. He illustrated this through the analogy of a chariot. The body is the chariot driven by 5 horses representing the human senses. The mind acts as the charioteer holding the reins and directing their movement, while the soul is the one seated within the chariot, the true self that must ultimately guide the journey. From this follows Spinoza's ethics. Something is good if it enhances our ability to think and act in harmony with the laws of the nature, and bad if it diminishes it. A rational person understands that all individuals are interconnected expressions of the same reality. This insight fosters cooperation, compassion, and social harmony. Happiness lies in fulfilling our conatus through understanding, Spinoza argued. The highest happiness is the intellectual love of God, a deep awareness of the unity and the necessity of all things. In this state, destructive emotions fade and inner peace emerges. Freedom, therefore, is not escape from causation, but understanding it deeply. Though these views only earned him condemnation during his lifetime, in later centuries they became the very source of inspiration of some of the finest philosophers and artists. In Germany, Spinoza's influence became almost transformative. Hegel famously declared that to be a philosopher, one must first be a Spinozist. Goethe, regarded as one of the greatest playwrights who delved deeper into human psyche and its complications, found in Spinoza a source of spiritual calm and creative inspiration. Even in literature, Spinoza's influence is unmistakable. Leo Tolstoy and George Eliot in particular engaged deeply with his ethical vision. Eliot in fact translated his ethics into English, helping bring his ideas to a wider audience. About 500 years after he coined such a defiant and almost scandalous idea of God, Spinoza's philosophy still offers a profound antidote to the 21st century's meaningless pursuit of transitory pleasures, social validation, and material wealth. His philosophy provides a framework for shifting from passive existence, governed by fears and desires, to an active life of joy, self-awareness, and intellectual understanding. In a culture that is drowning in information yet starved of wisdom, his insistence on knowing causes rather than blindly consuming facts feels rather very urgent. His philosophy offers a disciplined return to clarity. He reminds us that freedom is not indulgence, but the ability to act from reason rather than compulsion. Spinoza's idea that all beings are expressions of one reality challenges the very divisions that fuel conflict and alienation. His concept of conatus exposes how our striving has been hijacked by meaningless and endless consumption, leading to decadence rather than fulfillment. By grounding morality in what enhances our capacity to think and live coherently, He offers a stable alternative to cultural drift of our times. In a time of chaos, Spinoza does not offer escape but a way to see clearly and live deliberately. If these ideas connect with you, do consider subscribing to our channel that aims to cultivate a niche but a necessary community of independent thinkers. See you in the next video. Until then, stay curious. Thank you for watching.